Let me introduce to you Emerson Moe. I tried to do the big entry here. Maybe I'll try it again. Hold on a second.
You don't have to do all that. Okay.
I can't help myself.
You can always cut it in there with.
Now you got to listen to this a minute. Listen. Oh, show. Here's Emerson.
Shabbat Shalom, family. It's a pleasure to get to be here and help Brother Jackson Snyder today. It's a beautiful day in Sunshine, Florida. It's a nice temperature outside. I'm sitting here.
Pretty things, you know.
Okay. According to the Gregorian calendar system, it's the 25th day of December, and we survived another 25th.
All right. Emerson is my good friend. He lives down in Port St. Lucie. I think you're still there now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, which is about, what, 25 from here? 30 miles from here?
Approximately.
We met on, we were doing, what was the name of that? Oomph or some other type of chat program. I can't remember. And he came on, and I fooled him. He thought he was talking to Brother Shroomkoff. And then he said he was in Port St. Lucie, which is right down the road here. And the guy's got talent. I hope you're up on your jokes. He did a great job in that little interview with Bogdan. And I've been wanting him to come back and come back and back. But he moved down to West Palm Beach. And he's an expert on pink slime.
I wouldn't go that far.
He's going to talk about health and nutrition, especially when it comes to fast foods. The serendipity here for Emerson and I is we've been talking about this. And so I did something unusual. I ate Kentucky Fried Chicken yesterday. And I've had the diarrhea ever since. I know you're not supposed to say those kind of things in public, right? I'm sorry if I offended anybody. Or you got
Jackson,
the idea that what?
You know that meat sacrificed to a pagan god, right? You know
fried chicken?
Kentucky Fried Chicken. Their meat is they have the imams there who pray over the meat as it's being slaughtered.
But you see, it wasn't chicken. It just said Colonel Sanders on the side.
Yeah, well, be careful with that stuff. It's not good for you.
Yeah,
I figured it was the Colonel that I was eating. It wasn't that.
Hope not.
It was bald, whatever it was. It didn't have a hair on it. Okay, well, anyway, I'm done. Thank you, Father, for bringing Emerson back and all our friends here. Oh, it's great. Great to see you, Ray, too. New friend, Cynthia. And, Father, we just give you the glory and honor, hoping that we can pick up some news on what's poisoning us all the time. And certainly I'm poisoned, and I might have to run out of here in about a minute. Okay, maybe Lee, you can take over if I have to run. So we give you the praise and honor anyway, and the comedy's yours too, such as it is. We do it all in the name of Yahshua, our Messiah. Amen. Here's Emerson. What do you think of that Kentucky Fried Chicken?
Yeah, they haven't seen my money for quite some time. That's what I think.
What kind of fast food do you eat?
Actually, I did eat fast food not too long ago, believe it or not. Wendy's, I had their French fries because they were supposedly natural cut. They were tasty. I guess it's the way I cheat. You know, something you have to keep in mind. It's not, you can't go overboard with anything. Otherwise, you'll be quickly labeled an extremist. And then people like you more for entertainment purposes than for actual like learning purposes or for, so that's something I've learned. But, it's hard because we live in a system here in America where we're constantly surrounded by all these tasty foods. And it's interesting how it hits on these receptors in our brain and it triggers and it let us know that this is delicious and this is flavorful, and it's hamburgers and French fries and all that stuff, milkshakes that you get at the stores, the fast food stores.
Oh my! I read what was in some of those milkshakes. I couldn't believe it. And those lattes, so-called.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll never eat another thing like that again until tomorrow.
That's one of the things for people that are conscious consumers. All right, first off, let me tell you this. If you don't already know this already, and you live in the United States of America or pretty much anywhere you live, you vote with your dollars. Whatever you spend your money on, you are supporting wholeheartedly. Whatever you're investing in, whatever you're purchasing for consumption, whatever you're buying at the grocery store, or purchasing out there, look at each one of those dollar bills as a vote, because a lot of us already know that the current system isn't something to have any faith in as far as like votes, when they say go out and vote and your vote matters and you count and all this. But then they have the electoral college, and then you learn about that, and then you learn, okay, they're lying to us on TV and they're just getting us involved in the system. Well, the true way you vote in this capitalistic system is how you spend each one of those dollar bills.
Emerson, are you a communist?
I wouldn't consider myself that.
Okay, all right, go ahead. I just wanted to make sure.
But what's interesting though is that I choose then to vote with my dollars consciously. When you look at each one of those dollars, you look at them as votes, you become a little more conscious of it. And then how you spend them, you can be more considerate. And the money that we are given is a gift from our Creator. He owns all of it. He owns the biggest diamonds. He owns all the gold. He owns all the silver. He owns even this fractional reserve fiat currency, the Federal Reserve note that we use. He owns that because it's all his. He owns all the minerals. If he wanted us to all be millionaires, he could drop, a gold bar at our house somehow. And if we believe what the story said about Yahusha, he had them go fish and get gold coins out of the fish's tummies to pay a tax. Like, he has that kind of power. My father's not limited, so he could do that, but he chose to allow us to live in this system where we have to vote with our dollar bills. So I intentionally don't allow the fast food system, for the most part, to see my dollar. What's interesting, too, is when you hear dollar bills, does anyone hear that feedback? It's not me. Sounds like a fan's going in a microphone or something. So in the system where we vote with our dollar bills, ideally you want to spend that supporting places that are going to be giving you food where you can read the labels, maybe like that's a good idea. If you know the farmer that's preparing it for you, then you'll be able to, or know someone that's just like one party between you and the farmer. But the way that we are marketed to nowadays, they have the packaging on the foods and they make us believe that stuff's grown in actual farms. But it's like, if you go and do any kind of homework and see how a lot of these cattle are raised that are used for the beef for McDonald's burgers or all the other companies' burgers, like, it's not at most companies. It's really bad conditions. Like, it's pretty, like, I was moved with compassion seeing some footage of those. And if you're not moved with compassion, you have to remember that we're all creation. We're all created in the image of the Creator, and the animals we were given to safeguard, and I picture that as taking care of them, not as, farming them and butchering them up and eating them, but as far as like taking care of them so that they can do their job. Imagine how clean our oceans could be if all the crustaceans were out there and all the clams were out there filtering them, doing what they're supposed to do. I've seen a picture of a fish tank and the differences, what they can do out in the water, what's left in there.
Never thought of that.
It would, I mean, where oceans would be very clean. It would be beautiful, like how much just just even just a little bit does, but because of the amount of consumption we do with that, with consuming all these crustaceans, the in USA and most or a lot of other countries, it ends up they can't do their job of filtering the oceans, and then like over here in the Gulf Coast a few years ago, I'm pretty sure anyone will remember the big oil that was pumping out all the oil, the big spill that we had. And I saw pictures of like what they were fishing out of Louisiana. And you could see that those crustaceans and all those animals, they eat that stuff, like the shrimp and all that, they eat that stuff, or they are affected by it because now they looked like the color was off. Like you could see, I mean, they're transparent a lot of the times when you see them already. So you can see what's up in them, and they didn't look good, but if they were all out there doing their job, then it would be a different story. But getting back on to fast food, like right now, what comes to my mind is how many hamburgers McDonald's serves every day. The amount of beef, like from this statistic from 2012 says that they serve 1% of the world's population. 1%, 68 millions, and that's in 2012. So maybe they didn't want to release any more information, or that's what I could find, But the interesting thing is, like, if you let that sink in, like, we have a lot of people on Earth, and if they're feeding that many people, like, they have a lot of influence over what's going on in the food industry. And we made them like that by buying their food. We as a people made them like that by buying their food, by voting with our dollars and going there and eating. So they're able to become an economy. McDonald's, they're, unfortunately for them, but that's what happens when you're the big dog. They're the biggest of all the chains here. You get picked on. So I'm picking on McDonald's here. But they have an economy that's larger than Ecuador. Like a corporation that's so big, and it has an economy and a GDP basically and it outnumbers nations. And Ecuador is not like a poor, like they're not too bad off. I know some people that were from Ecuador. I mean, the USA is a lot different standard of living, but I mean, that's pretty powerful. Not only that, if you think about how this corporation is, it owns prime real estate in all the cities, in all the countries practically. One of my friends was saying they have them in Haiti now. McDonald's just started getting into Haiti. So it's like, like even Ray Kroc, there was something when I was learning about real estate that they joked that when Ray Kroc, who's founded McDonald's, was asked, like, he asked what business I was in. And people said, "Oh, you're in the burger business, Ray." They thought that was funny. And he's like, "No, I'm in the real estate-based business." Like, McDonald's owns prime real estate in cities and nations around the world. Think about like the major intersections and what do you see close by a McDonald's? Like, they are very strategically positioned, and their value in real estate alone makes them very powerful, let alone they have something to keep them there and keep them pumping money into this corporation. And a corporation is basically a monster. It's a legal man, or it's not a man, but it's a legal person is what it is. And it's unbelievable how legal persons are able to own property and own things. Like, that changed like decades ago with court rulings, and these corporations were able to grow into these big monstrosities that we see today. And the unfortunate thing, I'd like to, be able to say that they do all these great things, but their practices are unsustainable. Because when you're making 76 hamburgers a second, when you're serving 68 million people a day, and you're doing 76 hamburgers a second, that's about 1 billion pounds of beef a year. 1 billion pounds of beef. And you know what? That's about 5.5 million cattle. Now, I'm going to talk about methane real briefly, because we hear all about carbon dioxide and how bad that is on the atmosphere, and they need to come down on corporations with carbon taxes and all this stuff. But that carbon feeds trees, okay? Trees eat carbon and create oxygen. But what about methane? They don't talk about methane, which is way more impacting in a negative way on our environment and on the atmosphere. But it's because of the beef industry. It's a corporate monster too. And they have lobbyists. They have people. You want to know how much McDonald's spends on marketing alone? $1 billion a year. And this is an old statistic, $1 billion a year.
Can I add something to that? Because I got to get up for a minute. But I used to work at a farm bureau managing an office, and I was astounded to find out that beef are fed what's called meat scraps. And I went out one time to see what meat scraps were. And meat scraps are roadkill that's picked up along the side of the road, rendered, still has the skin and the fur on it and the whole thing. I was just appalled to think that they were eating roadkill. When I asked the manager, where does this come from? He told me, where do you think those bossback trucks go to? What do you think they do with all those dead animals? Well, that was an interjection. Keep on going. I'll be back in a little bit.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's that's pretty disgusting. Yeah, I heard that they were even what happened with the mad hoof, what was it called, hoof disease? Oh, I forgot the exact name of the phrase, but it was because they were feeding cows, actual leftover cows. They were doing meat scraps like that, but it was actually they were turning the cows into cannibals, and that's not sustainable. Like that ended up creating that disease.
It was mad cow disease. Mad cow. Yeah.
Yeah. So mad cow disease, and then, wow, I didn't hear that one. So Brother Jackson's giving us a hand witness eye to that. That's disturbing. Yeah, it's a scary thing, you know. And so getting back to the marketing, like, I don't know how much experience you all have in marketing, but I have a little bit of a background in marketing. And I've sat down at the table with chief marketing officers and talked with them for hours, and it's really interesting because it really is a play on the human psyche, like to get you to buy. Basically, they create a need for something that you don't really need. They create a demand for something you don't really need by making you feel like other people have it, so you need to have it. But in this case of marketing, this is what's really sad, people, my brothers and sisters, is that this marketing is actually, a lot of it's aimed towards children. Yes, children see on average 250 McDonald's commercials per year. And if you think about it, how do you influence a generation? You go through the children. That's how you influence a generation. You teach children things. We are the most powerful influence on our children. Parents and grandparents, if you're an uncle or an aunt, like, all you have to do is show a child a little bit of attention, and they love you, and they'll remember you for the rest of their life. And I encourage you to show children that attention and give them love and bestow wisdom on them and knowledge. You know, that's what I do. I have a bunch of nieces, and I do that with them, and I'm the fun uncle. But they're influenced by McDonald's, you know. Kids, if you look at their commercials, they're associated with happiness. Like, McDonald's is happiness. It's like, you eat McDonald's, you are happy. But meanwhile, childhood obesity is growing more and more. Like, that's on a rise. And as childhood obesity is on the rise, so are McDonald's, the amount of money they're pouring into commercials. And that's just one fast food company. How many other companies can you name? There's companies that McDonald's, like I said earlier, is just the biggest one, you know. But there's Jack in the Box, like there's Arby's, there's Burger King, Five Guys, like there's a big list. And all these companies, they put profit before anything else. That is what a corporation and a company's job to do. I'm going to be frank. They don't give a darn about you. They don't give a darn about your well-being. What they care about is those dollar bills. They want as many of those as they can get out of your pocket as possible. And so they have marketing campaigns, and they influence the minds of our children. So when you drive by, they're yelling, oh, Happy Meal, or they're yelling, you know, French fries or whatever they're yelling, you know, to influence you as a parent to pull over and feed them. You know, we need to be feeding our children things that are going to help them grow and that have nutrition in it. Like McDonald's is pure pleasure food. All fast food, all that stuff, it's pure pleasure food. Your body is not getting, it's dead. Like, it's been processed, it's been cooked, it's been gone through all that stuff. So now there's no enzymes, there's no micro probiotics or prebiotics, nothing like that in there. Like, what you're getting is something that's going to actually take more energy from your body than what you're going to get out of it. And that's what ends up happening that's why if you eat it in excess, your body ends up having complications, you know, like gaining weight, not feeling well, and being, you know, lethargic. Now you're tired, you don't have energy. Like, I remember, I'll never forget when I was a teenager, this church that I went to as a high school, and we had a basketball team, and our church basketball team, we went to a tournament, and at this tournament, they had to feed us while we were there, and we ended up being at this tournament for a large portion of the day. And while we were there, we ended up eating McDonald's, like, I think it was 2 or 3 times that day. Like, I think what it was is we ate McDonald's on the way there. The next day we ate it twice. That's what it was. So it was 1 day before and 2 days the day after. And I remember at first being excited about that as a teenager, because that's pleasure food. You know, I'm a teenager. I didn't know any of this stuff I know now. You know, I was the marketing and the good food that's been engineered by people that get paid good money to taste good. That food did its number on me as a teenager. And, you know, I'm excited about it. But after the third time, I wasn't so excited. No, I felt, you know, affected. You know, I felt lethargic. I felt tired. I felt disgusted, really. Like, I didn't want to finish what I was eating. And normally that's not how I feel when I eat there. But, you know, that's what ends up happening because of all the calories that's in there, and how heavy it is on our digestive system to make its way through our digestive tract. So our digestive system has a lot to do with our health. Like, most of your lymph nodes are located in there. So if you're eating things that you're not supposed to, and you end up getting things like diarrhea, like, your body's trying to flush itself. You know, and that's why we need to be having probiotics and prebiotics, and you have it through your food, through sauerkrauts, like things you're not going to find at fast food places. You're not going to get fermented foods. Like, their yogurt, like, you might think, oh, well, they got yogurt. No, their yogurt's so loaded with sugar that it counterbalances anything nutritional about it. So it's a play on our psyche. That's what marketing does. Like, you think, oh, I'm having this is a parfait. It's yogurt, and it has, oh, there's some fruit in there. You know, I'm going to have my antioxidants, right? And you end up eating that, and it's not so, it tastes delicious because, again, it was engineered to do that. You know, I've made some things at home before, like yogurt, and you don't need to have a big ingredient list with all the things in there. You don't need to have modified food starch in yogurt. It's unnecessary. Like, when the yogurt I made at home was very simple, and it was delicious too. It tasted better than anything I got at the store. And the ingredients would be, I think, like 3 or something like that. It was like so simple. But you look at when you go to fast food places, you can't really look at the ingredient labels. That's the problem when we go out and eat. We don't really know what's going on in the kitchen. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And it was really gross because, you know, there's like a large number of things that going on. Like, when I was looking more into this topic, how, like, people having like roaches in their hash brown, like people having teeth and like a tooth inside their French fries. Like, someone even found like I'm not even going to mention what they found in the kids' Happy Meal. Like, it was something used for other activities that we're not going to mention, but it's like crazy. Like, somebody bit in their meat. There was a hypodermic needle that they believe came off from the cow being vaccinated. And it made its way all the way through that processing to this guy's hamburger, and he's biting into it, and there's a needle there. Thankfully, they didn't swallow it, because then they would have had a surgery to have that removed, and it didn't puncture their mouth or anything. But still, like, that's the problem when you prepare your own food and you take care of your own stuff at home. You know what's going on with your food for the most part. As long as you're avoiding boxed foods. If you go to the grocery store and you go shopping, pay attention to the fact that the aisles in the middle are where most of the processed foods are, aside from beans and things like that. But you look at the edges of the grocery store, that's where your fruits and your ingredients of one. And that's what we should be looking more towards, having less ingredients in our food, because then it has more life, most likely. As when we cook our vegetables, which most of these places, it's all cooked, unless you get a salad. But even their salads, like this one, there was this one lawsuit. This guy, I guess he's a coach, and his wife was eating the salad. They're trying to do something healthy, right? He brings this salad. She's eating the salad, and they notice that it's a rat in the salad. And it wasn't a little rat. It was a big rat in the salad. And this coach was so upset. He called McDonald's, and they came and they showed up, and to make sure he didn't put it in there, like he's going to put a rat in. And so they launched their investigation. Yeah, he went ahead and contacted some lawyers and got a lawsuit going, and they settled for an undisclosed amount outside of, without having to take it all the way through the whole system of the court system. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that happens when you're out there. And this guy, I'm sure he would have never saw that coming. None of us are going to serve our significant other one that we love a dead rat in their salad. No one would ever do that. That's like pretty darn nasty, and you can get sick from that kind of stuff. But here this happened because we're trusting other people to take care of our food behind the scenes. And you open up your this opportunity for things like this to happen. And ideally we shouldn't be worrying about that stuff. I don't have to worry about needles in my food because my wife does it. Maybe an occasional hair, that's not so bad considering what some of these other people have found. And speaking of hair, they found it's ridiculous how many people are finding pubic hair in their food, apparently. Like, it's actually a statistic. Like, I couldn't believe it, that it's actually a statistic, but, when it's out there. And it popped up multiple times. We see it in the movies and stuff, but, a lot of this stuff's based on real life. Getting back to McDonald's with and the children, the marketing, that we have to remember that we influence our children and those children around us more than anything any television commercial can. Like, that's why they do that stuff, is to try and influence them. But we have the most powerful way of influencing them by showing them attention and teaching them wisdom, like I said earlier, and some knowledge, And like my nieces asked me, like, T.O. Emerson, why don't you celebrate Christmas? I'm like, when you're older, I'll tell you, but right now, that's not something we'll talk about. Or they're like, Tio, you don't like fast food. And I'm like, no. Or they notice. They're paying attention. The children are. And so they know that their uncle's a little different. And because of that, they take note of that. And then the fact that they get that attention. So when we have these little ones, it's ideal to set the best example we can. There's a verse that talks about how it's better for a milestone to be tied around your neck and for you to be cast into the depths of the ocean or the sea than to offend one of these little ones. So I'd imagine if we blessed one of these little ones, how much on the opposite end that could end up bleeding to. That has a lot of rebound, a lot of positive recourse. Especially when we have corporations to compete with that have $1 billion to spend to market. They have to do that, though, in order to establish brand recognition. This is what they do. They have their little jingles. Like, I drive by some of these places. I remember hearing these jingles when I was a kid. My daughter, she repeats the jingles. Like, this is part of the marketing. They create these little jingles, and the kids repeat it, and they grow up thinking about it. But that creates brand recognition. That's not necessarily, and which in hope creates customers. That's what they want. So marketing is something that's really fascinating if you ever want to spend a little time looking into. What really opened up the door for me, I encourage you to look into if you want to research marketing about how well it can influence the population, is look into what happened with the women. They were with the cigarette. It started with the cigarette industry trying to get women to smoke cigarettes. And they were researching why women weren't smoking cigarettes. And they ended up staging an event where a bunch of photographers were there for the newspapers, and they had a bunch of women marching out, and I think they were in like Statue of Liberty or they were in some sort of like attire, and they like throw their hats down or whatever, and then they like take out a cigarette and light it up and smoke it. And they got that on camera, and like they put it in newspapers, and because of this guy that they hired that was like a brother of a psychologist, he had some sort of relationship or studied with the details escape me, but they hired somebody that had this insight when he looked into it, and it made the difference because the cigarette industry started exploding in their sales to the female population. And if you think about it, that's a whole half of the population that they needed to try and tap into. Now that opened up a big potential for more profits, which is what drives all these corporations, and that's exactly what drives these fast food nations, these fast food countries. So
Emerson, I remember years ago they had the Virginia Slims was a big was a big move towards women. Virginia Slims is when it came out. I remember that was the first one they pushed it towards women.
What's that mean, Virginia Slims?
That was a brand of cigarette.
Oh, okay. Yep. So you were saying you remember from yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, but it works. I mean, it's because of the capitalism, like running, everything's got to be about money. Like and there's got to be a balance to it. One of the other facts that I thought was pretty interesting was when I was at one of the restaurants that have a soda dispenser for you, soda fountain, so you can go out there and fill your cups up. And I was talking to them, and she was telling me that if I saw the inside of one of those machines, I would never drink from that fountain machine. That's what she told me. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And she's like, yeah. She's like, and then the statistic was really interesting. And they said that almost half of the soda fountains contain fecal bacteria which is specifically coliform, and it's from poor cleaning practices. So I remember when I read that, heard that, I remembered hearing her tell me that information. And so I don't drink soda anyway, because of the sugars and because of it's not really healthy for your liver and all that stuff. But when she told me about the inside of that, and I asked her, I was like, it looks pretty bad in there, and she was like, yeah, it's nasty. She's like, you would never want it. And this is funny that this comes to my mind now. I work out, and in the gym locker room, the code enforcement was there because the gym had their hot water was off for like a week or two. Like, it's a rundown building, the hot water was off, and so code enforcement showed up because he was called, and he was talking to me and told me, this code enforcement agent, that if I rode with him for a week, he said if I rode with him for a day, I would never eat out again, is what he told me. And I said, and I'm looking at him puzzled. And I'm like, what do you mean? Because I don't eat out for the most part anyway. But he's saying eat out, period. He's like, in the restaurants, he said, this portion of where we're from in Florida, which in this portion was West Palm Beach, he was saying that they're reactive, basically. So we have to wait until we get a call before we show up, and then we do our inspection. He said other parts of Florida, like over in Jacksonville, they're proactive. They go out ahead of time and randomly do inspections, and they're going to show up, and you don't know when, and they're going to inspect. And they have a list that they keep up there in Jacksonville, and on that list, they'll tell you whether or not what they're rated, an A rated, B rated, C rated, and why and whatnot. So he ends up having telling me that the things that he's seen down here, because they're reactive instead of proactive, is like rats in the kitchen. He's saying rats in the fryer. He's like, they don't change the oil because it's late at night, you know, it's tired. You're tired. It's like 2, 3 o'clock. You're closing. Just leave it for the morning, you know? Oh, now that there's a rat it turns out there's a rat in the fryer. Yeah, that stinks, you know? Another thing he was saying, roaches is a big thing. He said roaches. Yeah, that's, that's a problem. Down here in Florida, you know, it's hard because, we have a lot of insects. We got a lot of variety of insects and roaches. Like a lot of houses have that, but you definitely don't want to see that in the restaurant world. But apparently that's a big thing that he was saying. But I didn't ask him to go into too much detail. I took him for his word. And that's one of the benefits you get from eating at home versus fast food. You know, the cleaning practices over there aren't going to think about it. They make, okay, McDonald's is going to have, or Burger King, they're going to have their set of rules for their employee to follow, but it's up to that employee to follow it. You know, obviously the employee that's putting body hair or they're having hairs fall into the food, like they're not following the protocol. You know, some people might not feel like changing the fountains because it's a pain, you know, to twist all those off and have to soak them, but let alone open up the machine and try and get up in there and get all that whatever is up in there. So it's up to people doing their job. And if any of you are like me and you've been in the working world, you know that you can't trust anybody really to do their job. You got to, a lot of times, if you're a hard worker, like I tend to be, you end up doing more than your job because of the people that don't really do their job. It's unfortunate for us, but apparently that's the way that some people operate. So those people do end up working at restaurants. And they do end up taking shortcuts, and we end up being the ones, if we're going to be one of their people eating, that end up being the recipients of their mistakes. You know, like we were saying earlier, like having a tooth inside of your McDonald's thing, or like having issues. Like some of it can't be avoided, I guess, because they say it happens in transit or it happens over at the factory, but nonetheless, it's happening, and you know, it's something that's not so something that we'd like to avoid. So there's an interesting movement that's called the slow food movement. I don't know if any of you ever heard of that. I originally heard it from a friend that's called my friend Farmer Sal, and in the slow food movement, there's been from what I looked into it came from Italy. Like there's a few cities that are like considered slow cities where you just take your time moving and nothing's done quickly. So obviously there's no fast food there. But the concept of preparing your food and being conscious of where your food comes from, and it involves actually also having community gardens and delivering the food to the elderly in the community that end up benefiting from it because they can't afford good food at the grocery store, because, you know, especially organic food, that stuff's like, you know, it almost seems like you get a fraction of the size for twice as much. It almost seems like with some of the organic foods, you know, and it's like, geez, it's supposed to be cheaper if you're not using all those pesticides and chemicals, right? Well, try growing that stuff yourself. It'll definitely teach you a whole new appreciation for what it takes to grow some corn. You know, I don't know how many of you have tried, but I know there are some of you that do. Growing, excuse me, excuse me, I'm parched. But growing food at home is definitely a challenge. You know, it is involved. And I've done it multiple times, and it's great if you have fertile soil, but in Florida we have sand. Apparently, I watched this one lady. She was an old school. Like she looked like she was 70s or so, and she was talking about, and she had gone around traveling, talking about gardening, and she was talking about how when she was in a group of gardeners, a bunch of them that were considered master gardeners that had like written books and traveled the world, and what she found interesting, that each one of them that thought they all had great green thumbs, all of them had the same thing in common, and it was that their parents were all chicken farmers. So they all had that chicken manure. So they all had good fertile soil to start growing things in because of the way the chicken manure composts into the earth. And their feathers compost extremely well into the earth as well of the chickens. So it's interesting how how important the soil is in growing at home. But it's like if you start doing that and start doing community gardens and start being a part of the slow food movement, you end up having a greater appreciation for what it takes to make food. And like I said, I heard about this from Farmer Sal, and he's hosted events at his place for the slow food movement. And I got to drive his tractor around before to turn the soil, and it's just a beautiful thing to see how he can live out there and live on the farm. And like also though, it's not something that it's not easy to do year round either because of the summer heat. So that's definitely something to battle here in Florida as well. So I see I have a number of comments in here. I'm using the new Zoom format, so I wasn't really paying attention to them like I usually had in the past. I don't know. Brother Lee, you still there? Have you been following the comments?
Yeah, it's mostly snide remarks and sarcasm. But, wait, most of that is mine. I'm sorry.
Hey, we're all entitled to our opinions, you know.
Our sense of humor, yes.
That's absolutely. Hey.
We can go as long as you want. Jackson's gone to lie down. He's not feeling well, so you can go as long as you want. Or if some people have questions or more snide comments, just kick itself in.
There you go. Yeah, you're all entitled to have your opinion. This is my opinion. You can go and do your own research and look and do it for yourself. And you know, I know people that have lived live. Like this one lady, she was working at an Oriental marketplace that I was visiting to get certain products you can't find in other places, and she spoke a little bit of she spoke broken English kind of, but she was telling me how she drinks soda, only soda, all day, no water, and she's been like that for decades. And I'm amazed because, you know, from what I've learned, she should be like really dehydrated and she shouldn't be able to really like she's getting her water with all this syrup and chemicals and all this. But there she is, and she's like telling me, and I'm like 76 years old, and I'm like, you know, good for you, you know, like I'm happy for you. And then she was telling me too, because they had a product, and I'm like, oh, no, it has MSG in it. I'm like, no, I'll pass on it. She's like, no, a little bit of MSG is okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it's not getting through other ways. Like there are texturized or autolyzed yeast extract, and there are other like hidden names. Like when it's blatantly on there, I'm definitely going to avoid that. And that's,
Mo, I just read the other day, it takes 38 8-ounce glasses of water to counteract what 1 12-ounce soda does to you.
38. Wow.
38.
Because there's a lot of chemicals that are in there that get
right.
I mean, your body doesn't know what to do with all that stuff. Your body gets all these chemicals in there, but has no idea what to do with it. So it just like stores it away in your lipid cells and stores it away, and like it crystallizes on your organs, and so you have to drink a bunch of water to flush all that out.
Emerson, I've understood from a book I'm reading now is that our body says you need to make more fat because I have to store the toxins. And the place where it starts storing the fat, it makes brain cells that are fat and stores the toxins in your brain, in the fat cells. And your body demands more fat because it's got to get rid of got to put the toxins somewhere. And well, there it goes.
Yeah, that's a vicious cycle. Yeah, this makes sense to me because I've heard and read, your brain is 97% fat. So when you think about that, your brain is made up of fat. It's important that you feed that fat. And your fat is what stores toxins, like Brother Lee was just saying. It does store toxins in there. That's what. And so if your brain is getting stored with bad toxins, you know, that's going to affect the way you feel. It's going to affect the way you think, you know, and then it's going to create deeper cravings. Like it's crazy how a lot of these foods are like actual addictions. Like people actually have a physical craving for this food, and they need to satisfy that, you know, and it's scary that it can get to that point, you know, and obviously that's not moderation. So, I mean, it's up to you how you're going to spend your money, you know, and what you're going to put into your body. You know, I feel like our body's something special. I feel like our body was a gift. I think it is. I feel like it is a gift. Like our body's whole purpose is like to keep our brain alive. And our brain, it seems like where our consciousness is seated, and maybe that's where our soul and spirit and everything's seated in our brain. And it's mostly made up of these fat cells. And our body is something to preserve that. And if we take care of our body, you know, you can end up being able to get around when you're older, you know, and not have to be bedridden, not have to be hooked up to machines, or have like a bad way out. You know, it can happen quickly. My daughter's mom, her boss got diagnosed with leukemia in like a week within tax season ending, and their accountants, and like that's just, you know, sends domino effects. Like these, you know, I don't know how he ate, but I'd imagine, you know, it's like a lot of Americans eat. You know, we eat a lot of carbohydrates and calories, a lot of stuff high in fats. Everything's cooked, you know, and we eat what tastes good. You know, we're feeding our taste buds, and that's part of it is because, you know, that's because of we're competing with our brain, and our body's competing with food that's been engineered to be delicious. Like these guys, just like a cigarette has been now as addictive as they've been engineered to be even more addictive by adding all these additional chemicals. Well, they've done this with food. As delicious as a regular hamburger can be, when they add some of their engineering, they can do magical things. You know, and it's things like allow their hamburger to stay preservative, like with their preservatives, stay their preserved state for 14 years. That's how long they say that that McDonald's hamburger can sit there without decomposing. And bacteria are a great judge of what's good and what's tasty. Leave a watermelon on the counter for 14 days, you know, and see what happens. Like it gets dried up and disintegrated, and it starts changing and rotting. Well, it's because the bacteria is eating at it. You know, you go put that outside, and then additional bacteria, that's just what's in the air and what's on your melon doing that. You go put that outside, and then the insects can get involved in it, and then additional bacteria, and the decomposition process is expedited. Not the case with food that's been engineered to look a specific way and taste a certain way, the same way no matter where you are and everywhere you're at, you know, because people are expecting that same flavor. So things like that end up being engineered into it. So all those preservatives aren't good for you. Not at all. I gotta tell you something that I heard that's like a conspiracy theory kind of thing. So I'm gonna put my conspiracy cap on for just a minute. Think about it. All right, I saw this documentary that was talking about how they kill beef, and like how the slaughterhouses have been more centralized and more centralized. And it's like, and then I heard this one guy that was a whistleblower, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but he was accusing basically of people of having humans to hide the bodies. They throw them in with the hamburger meat and the grinders, because you're already having beef from 1,000 cows. You know, you're not going to notice if there's a body in there, you know, or two or three, you know. So, I mean, what an ingenious but just terrible and, you know, and frightening way too, to think that it's possible that, you know, if the right person owns a slaughterhouse and they have the right man and the right ability, they could do that. You know, it's a possibility. You're not watching that 100% of the time. You know, that's the conspiracy cap, hiding bodies in the ground up beef. You know, that would be pretty frightening. But one thing that is true is what they're finding is that this stuff's not, you know, it can't be 100% beef if there's chemicals added to it to preserve it. But, you know, they're allowed to say that it's all beef, you know, all natural, because words in marketing terms, words like natural are considered undefined, so they can use it liberally. and they don't have to really, when it's not natural, like you and I as man and women interpret the word. So because of their corporate games and their loopholes with the statutes, codes, and ordinances and all that, they end up using words like natural and make us think. And another, like one of the individuals, I think it was Cynthia here, pointed out that like organic doesn't mean non-GMO necessarily. Neither does non-GMO verified. That doesn't necessarily mean GMO free. Yeah, it's scary. And what you have to really think about is like who owns a lot of the organic patents on organic seeds. Well, it's the same company that owns GMO seeds. To me, you and me, I would think that's a conflict of interest. But apparently, I mean, there's not been any moving bodies stopping Monsanto from doing that. But it happens because money is what is the deciding factor in this country. So when you're a big corporate monster and you're like considered a legal person and you can pump out and you can make billions and hundreds of millions of dollars, you know, how can you compete with a man or a woman like you in court when we struggle to keep our lights on? You know, we struggle to pay for a car. We struggle to buy a house. Like the biggest expenses we have in our life is buying a house and buying a car. And if you try and do it by cash, like you're saving for years basically. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle's real. And you and I are all going through it in some form or fashion.
So Emerson, if our meat supply is tainted, polluted, is, as I posted up there, is our clean meat supply any more kosher?
Clean meat supply?
Is it any more kosher? Is it kosher anymore as biblical kosher?
I don't know. I saw how they do even kosher slaughtering, and that doesn't sit well with me. Like, I don't think there's any way to, like, nicely kill something. And, like, either way, there's life escaping from it, and it's not something I do. Like, I had a steak not too long ago. I guess this is my confessions here to my brethren. But my company like took us out, and it was me and like my boss and my boss's boss, and they know me as a vegetarian, so they were surprised or pescatarian, I should say. But when I got the steak, you know, because it was like a $50 steak that they were going to pay for, and it's supposed to be the best place to get it. You know, I took advantage of it, and it was delicious. But I could tell you this, it was sat like a brick in my stomach.
3 days.
Oh, man. It was tasty going in, but it just sat there.
Unless you want to go vegan and vegetarian, or you buy your meat from an organic farm, I would say, you know, we do the best we can, and, you know, and we just eat clean meat. We obey the Torah and do the best we can with that. Unless we want to give up those fast food or those beef burgers or whatever.
I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? And some people don't want to give up the meat, the fish, and things like that.
It's not easy. And you know, and like I'm a testimony to that. Even if you think you're going to give it up, you don't really. A lot of the time, you don't really give it up. You end up having it every once in a while because you do end up having cravings. But I know this because of my habits with my food. Like, there's been a lot less water that's been used to feed like, there's a lot of water that's used to feed cows. I mean, water cows. Like, there's a lot used, like, so many gallons if you break it down per burger, it's kind of startling, actually, how much gallons it takes to make a burger versus, like, a salad. And water is an important part of life. And, you know, by polluting water and by wasting water and by bottling water, it creates a demand for the water. And
as far as the eggs and the dairy, Bethel, I try to get only the free range, and even the dairy, the milk anymore. If you buy it in the store, regular milk, that's just a chemical concoction. You get grass-fed milk. But even now, I've heard of A1 and A2, where there's people that are lactose intolerant are getting some type of, they get them from Holsteins, cows, And they're saying now to try to get it from the other types, the Jerseys and the different ones. But the Holstein cows are giving you, it's never ending. It's never ending. Yeah, they add the chemicals to the milk, Cynthia. I know that. And vitamin D enriched. That's such a joke, If you just get, you find a farm, or you get goat milk. Now, goat milk has a definite flavor to it. You can get it for, of course, veterinary purposes only. Meow meow. And so you can get your milk in different ways, and milk is good for you, but you've got to get the right milk and the butter. The butter from grass-fed cows has the K2. The K2 in it, vitamin K2, which is missing from regular butter and regular cow's butter. It decalcifies your pineal gland. Now, whatever you feel about it decalcifies your different joints and even your body. But there's so many things, so much research going on, and we have the internet. We have free books coming out. Well, books coming out that are exposing this stuff, and they just can't kill these doctors fast enough. They give the information out, and they do away with them.
There's a conspiracy about that. About how many of the holistic doctors and people that have been speaking out have been disappearing and dying mysteriously. Even Dr. Sebi passed away in custody down there in Honduras last year, I think it was, or might have been
Sebi, Dr. Sebi, yeah. He died in custody from pneumonia.
Yeah, how ironic, right?
Yeah.
I imagine if he weren't in custody, he could have got to what he needed to take care of himself. But it's a rough system out there. That's why we have to stick together as brothers and sisters, because the system has its benefits, but really it's about us taking care of each other, because that's the system to me. The other one's there for yeah, fast food. Another interesting fast food fact that I thought, they claim that 20% of Americans eat while driving.
Oh yeah, well, I think I did it today.
You know what? I heard that, and I was drink because I make a smoothie every morning for breakfast, and I drink it in the car. And I was like, man, I do it at my desk, but then when I go get my drink later, it throws off my routine a little bit, but. Yeah,
Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh man, I hate their slogan, man.
Oh well.
American runs on Dunkin'. No.
Cynthia, do you have something you want to say, or we want to talk later? I mean, you private messaged me. Do you want to say something now? You can undo your mic.
Well, I'm a little curious. You're talking about milk and so on. Goat's milk here, they're selling it a little more and a little more, but you have to buy it from the farm, and the farm has to be certified. The other thing that I'm curious about, and if you're willing to, we could talk about it later, is a lot of people, it's hard for a lot of people to switch from meat to full vegetarian, because they don't know how to switch the nutrition when you need the protein and so on, which is part of my problem. I would love to go mostly vegan, more or less. I mean, cheese, fish, I would like to be able to eat, but I don't even know where you can find good fish around here anymore, anywhere.
Right.
The oceans are polluted. So if you can go vegan and find good food, it's probably your best bet. But I can't, I can only grow a 10 by 5 foot garden here.
Even if you talk to Pantelleresco, Tony, he has a YouTube video station channel. He talks about the chemtrails that are polluting our crops from there. He's got a
we live in a chemical world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad, and they don't even do any studies on how the chemicals interact with each other, and the chemicals. Oh, speaking of chemicals, okay, garden fertilizer has about 10 chemicals. Well, when they did this company did this study, they found that the average strawberry milkshake had 59 chemicals. In order to make, because they're not using real strawberries, that would take that would be slow food methods, So in fast food, they don't got time. They don't got time for that. So they use their chemicals like anethol, ethyl, lactate, ethyl, solvent. They use 59 different chemicals to try, and that's part of it. Not all 59 are for the taste of strawberry, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. That's just, and I was thinking like in a strawberry milkshake I wouldn't have thought there was that many chemicals, but there's more than what is in, chemical count wise, more than what's in garden fertilizer. So that's what preservatives are chemicals, so that counts. And then so not only do we not know how the chemicals react with one another, but then we don't know how it reacts with the sun on top of that when we go out and have the sun, which beams us with X-rays and gamma rays and all these other rays, and hits us, not just the UV rays,
We've got a bunch of people on there. Yochanan, how do you guys handle it? Are you still on, Yochanan? Well, maybe he just turned his thing on and left it. Okay. We've got a bunch of people on there that, I haven't heard from in here. Maybe they just went to sleep. But so, you just, I can't see getting fret up about it, frelling about it. You do the best you can.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, we're trying to solve the world's problem. How are you doing? Right. How are you doing with your milkshake?
Pepto-Bismol.
Well, that's just activated charcoal made it so you can eat it.
Hey, I'm here, Lee.
Oh, you are? How you guys handle the healthy foods up there and all the craziness?
We try to, I guess, do the best we can concerning that. We haven't gone to Whole Foods or a place like that, even though one time Dr. Snyder brought some fish for us from there. I think it was Whole Foods. Really good stuff. But, usually we don't usually do that. We're trying to eat more vegetables. That's all I can say. I mean, go to a fresh market. Is it Fresh Food? Something like that. Or Fresh Market or something like that. I know that prices there are a little bit higher, and that can be prohibitive at times.
Fresh Market, yeah, it's like a supermarket of,
fresh food, organic.
Yeah.
But you can add quinoa to your diet. It's not really that expensive, and once you start eating quinoa, you won't want to go back to rice. That was a really easy switch for me. I'm probably about 98% vegetarian at this point. I just can't see killing something so that I can put dead flesh in my body. I think spiritually I've kind of lined up with Bishop Brad Brink on that it's just wrong. So
do you soak your quinoa?
I do not. I like it kind of firm. So when I make quinoa, I actually fry onions in some coconut oil, and then once the quinoa is done, then I kind of make a fried quinoa out of it. So I eat a lot of it.
Yeah, for people that worry about protein, I could tell you a couple good sources that are vegetarian would be like hemp protein. I've been going to the gym now for about 12 months, and that's been my primary protein. And what's interesting is that it's if you get the hemp protein with the fiber, it's basically made from the seed, it's the most absorbable protein in all of nature. So out of all the protein, like people, like a lot of the weightlifters are looking for quality. A lot of times when you're going for quality, you sacrifice quantity. Or no, vice versa. Because they're trying to go like gram for gram, or even a gram and a half per pound. That's what I mean to say, gram per pound or a gram and a half per pound of their protein for their weight, which is like really tough on your body because proteins, your body has to digest all that. So hemp protein, moringa is good as well. That's another good. And then I also chlorella. I eat a lot of chlorella. It's actually a great source of protein. It's a blue-green algae, and it also pulls out toxins. So I try and eat that daily, twice a day, to try and both help with the toxins, but as well as be a decent source of protein. But I think there might be a little bit of a misconception, like we might have been, like not, we might have been like, there might be like misunderstanding about like how that we need all this protein like in such abundant quality. I've heard of people even like some claims that say when you go strict vegan, or I think they were saying strict vegan, like your body can even produce some of its own protein, which was a really fascinating idea. But you know, that's something I haven't looked into or heard anything more about other than that.
Someone posted something on Facebook, came up on my page anyway, how to get protein from plant matter. I guess even avocados has a lot of fat in it, so I guess that's some protein. I posted before, you know, fat is good as long as it's vegetable fat.
Well, and it depends on the vegetable too, because a lot of the corn and soy and canola are all GMO. Cottonseed oil, that's a very unnatural. Grapeseed oil is like a chemical process to make. Grapeseed oil is actually not the best source of oil, but there's coconut oil is by far, I believe, the best oil you can possibly use. It has a type of medium chain fatty acids in it, and it's like considered brain food. And I even read this one report a little while ago, though, about how they're finding that in Alzheimer's patients, they give them coconut oil, and it's helping reverse some of the symptoms, and which is really, really awesome. On the other hand, one of the facts that I came across when I was looking into the fast food was about how they're saying how eating fast food causes your brain, because of it's high in saturated fat and the trans fats, it leads to brain shrinkage, which they are saying is a possible link with Alzheimer's with that, which is kind of interesting. You know, I'd imagine those people aren't trying to do it. Again, this is probably extreme cases like the people that are addicted to it or whatnot. But, you know, if you're doing things at home like having coconut oil, then you're having influence over your body in a great way. Hemp oil, olive oil. Well, also, like from what I understand, if you start heating olive oil, then it changes molecularly and it's not as good for you. So olive oil is one of those oils that's ideal to have raw versus like coconut oil has a very high smoke point of like over 400 degrees, as does avocado oil. And those are really great. And my wife and I, we buy a 54-ounce container of coconut oil at a time. And that's what we use for, and she's Puerto Rican. So they do Puerto Ricans do a lot of frying, but we've cut back on that a lot in our household. But when she fries with coconut oil, it tastes so much better than any of the food that I have at her dad's house that's fried in vegetable oil, which is mostly soy and canola mix blend. So,
Jackson, you want to tell us what you're doing with the moringa? Jackson? Oh, he went back to bed. Okay. He did a cutting on his moringa and put it in about a 1-cup jar and put some 150 proof Everclear in it. So in order to pull the nutrients out of the moringa.
Right here.
All right. Do you want to tell us what you did with the moringa? Yeah.
Sure. I'm listening, but I'm on the couch. Oh, you probably can't. It looks like it's in black and white, but it's very dark green. This is Lee's idea. I went and got some Everclear. That's, what is it, 153 proof?
That's really high.
160 proof alcohol. And I took the moringas. I cut the small stalks and put them in here about 3/4 high. I looked this up on the internet. After cleaning them real good. And then you got to put enough in to always cover all of the plant. So you turn it upside down every day.
You leave it in there about 3 weeks, and then you pull off the solid matter, and then it's basically supposed to pull all the good stuff out of the moringa, and you have it in a tincture form.
That's neat.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I'm actually doing something similar with, or exactly like that with reishi mushrooms.
Okay.
Because that's a one way you can pull out the from the reishi mushroom.
Wow, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
You can also speed the process up if you take a crock pot and you put a towel in there, set your tincture mix on it in there and cover it just almost to the lid with water. Turn it on low, and then every day for 3 days you, of course, shake it, take it out and shake it. Make sure your water stays up. But it only takes 3 days to make the tincture instead of 3 weeks, 3 to 5 weeks, depending on what you're doing.
So that's interesting. So expedites the process. So that's if you ever had to do it en masse, that would definitely be helpful.
Yeah, that's probably how they do it too.
I bet.
But you can do that with pretty much anything, though. I mean, as far as, holistic foods, good solid food, you can order moringa powder or spirulina, anything like that, and go ahead and do the same thing. And then you just need 3 or 4 drops versus, a half a cup.
Now with the moringa powder, wow, am I doing that? With the moringa powder, do you lose the volatile oils out of the moringa when they do the process of making it into a powder? Because I have garlic that's a powder. Now I just wonder if raw garlic would be better to use rather than the powder, because you have the volatile oils that would evaporate very quickly when you dry it out. Would that make a difference, you think?
No, the oil is what gives it the smell and the taste. It's not the leaf.
Right, but when you dehydrate something, it evaporates. The water evaporates. Usually,
Yep.
doesn't the oil evaporate first?
No, the oil stays in it, I would think. I don't know. Maybe somebody can answer that for us.
That's what I'm saying. If the fresh leaf still has some of the volatile oils in there, because gasoline and oil, water, I don't know if oil would boil off. Oil is going to be lighter than the water when you have it in liquid form. Cynthia, you got something there?
If you make bacon, boil it in water before it fries, you will cook off most of the oil from the bacon.
Mm-hmm.
Usually you cover it about 1/4 to 1/2 inch above the bacon, and you get rid of a lot of the grease just that way.
So it evaporates?
Huh?
So you boil it until the point it evaporates, and then you cook the bacon?
Yeah, until the water's gone, and then
the
you
oil
continue to
goes
fry
with
it
the
just a
water.
little bit, and you still get a little bit of oil, but not as much as you would if you just threw it in a skillet and cooked it. So it depends on what it is. When you add the water to it, sometimes you can cook off the oil. It just depends on what kind of oil it is.
That's when you get the grease on your top fan, like it cakes all up in there from doing that.
It's not that bad, but you just boil it. I mean, I don't know how to use what you guys are talking about at all. I'm lost. But as far as that kind of thing goes, you can boil off some oils.
Probably if they're lighter than water.
I know that my mix unit, or what's it, a humidifier, I put a little eucalyptus oil in there, and then as the steam goes across it, the eucalyptus is boiled or wicked up into that, and then the whole room smells like eucalyptus.
That's what I'm saying. So if he puts fresh herb from the moringa, what he's going to get in the tincture within the alcohol is still going to be the oil that was pulled out of there and absorbed with the alcohol. The alcohol.
Probably.
Okay, so if we can get fresh herbs like fresh moringa, like here when I'm trying to do the garlic, it would be better to do fresh herb rather than dried powder. Okay, all right.
Do you need fresh herbs?
No, I have garlic. I can get garlic.
Do you need fresh moringa?
We do have fresh moringa.
Hey, Lee,
Yes, sir.
here's the difference, though. If you take a cup and you pack it full of fresh moringa, 1 cup, and you have that much. But if you take 1 cup of powdered moringa, that's going to be 10 cups of fresh moringa. So the powder tincture is actually going to be stronger than the fresh tincture. That's the difference.
We shall see. I see what you're saying because it takes up the air pockets. It takes up the air pockets in there.
Right. I'm sure the taste would be different though.
Yeah.
Would you strain off the powder?
Oh, after the tincture's done, after 2 or 3 weeks, yeah, you strain off the solids. So all you have, like right here, I did the same thing to cayenne pepper for 3 weeks with 120 proof moonshine. Wait, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. Anyway, and I strained off the solid cayenne pepper. I gave most of it to Brad Brink's wife when they were here. But what I keep this for is I take it to restaurants. So if people have heart attacks, I just make a thimble full of this and squirt it down their throat if they have a heart attack. I've been told either they'd still die or they chase you around the room because it'll bring them back. So,
are you serious? Are you joking?
No, I'm serious. Making it a joke. That's what they say. If you have a heart attack, you just take a thing of this because it is. I mean, I can smell it, and it definitely smells the alcohol. But you can smell the cayenne pepper in there also.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So making some things like this, trying with the moringa. Yes, we have those. We did the rain gutter irrigation. So it's almost like a bush. It's a smaller thing than your trees. The moringa is, but it is growing. It is growing.
Nice.
So Lee, perhaps we can have a dialogue after the meeting about growing the moringa. Because I still have those seeds. It has to be above 50 degrees, and we actually dropped to 52 the other morning. So I'm still kind of waiting, but I have all those seeds, and I want to get them planted. Maybe we could talk after this.
We can talk now, and people can drop off as they feel.
Okay. So
I've been told you soak them overnight in a hydrogen peroxide, and then you plant them.
Have you used that method?
Yes, that's one of the ones that Jackson has. I had 7 of them, and through different things, the plants blowing away and rolling down the road a little bit, and and this one survived, the one he has going now, and that's what I used. Actually, 5 of the 7 sprouted. Yeah.
So is that? Do you take the husk off or you leave the husk on with that method?
Husk on.
Husk on. Okay, so that breaks down the husk then.
Yeah. Like the little chickens, it has to struggle to get out.
Okay, so what, about a ½ inch into the ground?
I think so. I think that's what I did, yeah.
Okay, I'm using fish fertilizer. Are you using any fertilizer at all?
No, I just use the potting soil I get from like Home Depot or somewhere.
I'll tell you what I'm doing for soil. I have to drive to Galveston, 15 miles away, with a shovel, load up a mulch compost mix, and we bring it back here and we literally shake it out so that I have dirt compost for the plants, and then I'm taking the mulch and we're throwing it out back, getting ready to do the wood chip thing with it. So it's a lot of work to get dirt, but it's free.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, that's what I was interested in, because what'd you guys send me, like 20 seeds? So I'm going to plant them all at once, and they'll each have their own little, I'm making the planter boxes this week, hopefully, y'all willing. And
I still have your lemon seeds that Jackson got from you.
Uh-huh.
I still have them. Well, they're right behind me here. I haven't planted them yet.
I have lemon trees growing like crazy. I have key limes. If you plant a key lime, you'll get a key lime out of it because they're the closest unaltered lime tree there is. So I have lemons, limes, grapefruit, and oranges, mandarins, and tangerines right now.
How tall are the plants?
They're only about 7 inches right now, but they're going to get there. I pray over them. So.
Okay.
But anyway, I just wanted to know how you went ahead and did the the moringa, because I'm going to be getting mine in the ground probably by next week at the latest. So
Now the one I had Jackson was I kept it in the little seed pods.
yeah.
Cups. I kept it in that thing for almost 3 months.
Well, they say don't transplant it the first year because they grow such a deep root that you can kill it. So what I heard was that if you plant it in a pot, it has to stay there for a year before you can put it in the ground.
This was barely 4 inches tall, and it just stayed that height and didn't grow anymore for almost 3 months.
Huh.
I planted it in a 5-gallon bucket, which is where they are now, and they're becoming a bush. They're not trying to go tall like
Right.
some of them did. My mom I have about 5 of them growing in 5-gallon buckets, but the one Jackson has is more like a bush now. It's growing
Wow.
wide as opposed to tall. So maybe when I kept it in that small container for so long, it learned that it needs to be a bush instead of a tree. I don't know. I'm not an expert.
Yeah, well, I mean, none of us are, but you just do the best you can. You know, Cindy, that would be a really good product for you to grow. You have such a small area and that's so nutrient rich that you know, I'll send you some seeds and we'll get them off to you and you can plant them.
Now, Cynthia, you're up north, aren't you? Cynthia, you're up north?
Yeah, she's in Washington State. She's in Tacoma.
Yeah.
You're talking about moringa, Sandy?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm willing to give it a shot.
Yeah.
I got 8 avocado plants growing behind me.
Awesome. Well, the moringa, you have to keep it inside because it won't grow after 50 or below 50 degrees.
Okay.
It really loves the warmth. So, but
I'm a plant lover, so yeah, no problem.
And we pray for under 50 degrees here.
Where are Lee? Where are you?
I'm in Vero Beach.
Oh yeah, you're in Florida. Oh my God.
it's 79 right now. It's 9:30. It's 79 degrees here, and I'm still waiting for it to warm up. So.
Yeah, we've got about 70 degrees at night, and that's been nice sleeping weather. But,
yeah, perfect.
We're going to get up there, and it's going to be miserable here. Really hot.
All right. Well, I guess I'm done. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have anything they want to say? Anybody want to chime in on vaccines, how they feel about that? And
my doctor keeps trying to make me take them, and I keep telling him, you just leave and I'll be fine. I'm not taking vaccines, period. I don't do them. They're dangerous and they'll kill you.
Yeah, if I was forced to take them, I would do mega doses of ascorbic acid and activated charcoal is what I would do. And the women here, like in Dunkin' Donuts where I go, she has to take her kids and get vaccinated for daycare. And I tell her, I says, after they take them, pile up on vitamin C because the immune system on those babies are really undeveloped yet. And,
well, they've got,
Go ahead.
They've got so much mercury in them.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make vaccines mandatory here. They're trying to make them mandatory across the whole United States. And if you don't take your vaccines, you don't get food stamps, you don't get welfare, you don't get Social Security. This is what they're talking about.
well, that's the whole plan in becoming self-sufficient, is that you don't have to put up with any of that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Right.
If they allow us to become self-sufficient, they're talking about removing the ability to become self-sufficient. That's what they're doing to these farmers out in the South and the Midwest.
Yeah. Bethel, that is part of my thing, was that I think that a lot of the Cipro and things like that, antibiotics that I was administered when they first came out, I know I was a test subject with my RSD. I believe that that's caused the osteoporosis and the arthritis that I suffer with so badly. You know, this stuff is poison, and I quit going to pain management. I'm going to find a natural pain remedy if it hair lips the Pope. I'm just not going to do it. So I'm tired of playing their game. And you know, Yah says that if we, having done all, stand, but how many of us can really say we've done all? I want you to think about that. I mean, I had to say, you know, well, here I've got property down here. I mean, I've got the perfect growing climate down here on the Gulf of Mexico. Have I done all? And it wasn't until I realized that I can plant my own vegetables and I can use what Yah gave me. And then when I start eating all the vegetables that Yah's going to allow me to grow, then I can stand and say, okay, Yah, I've done everything I can do. It's up to you now. And I believe he's going to honor that. But it's the having done all part that many of us, I think, miss sometimes. So that's all. That's my 2 cents worth, everybody. I love you all. I'll hush up now.
All right, then. Well, there's a bunch of people on. Jackson's still on. He's the host. So I guess if we all hang up, he's going to come back and hang up or whatever. But it's been fun.
Thank you.
Okay.
Love
then.
you all. Shalom.
Yep, shalom.